Greetings, Toastmasters.
My dad was in the Navy in World War II.
My name has always been an icebreaker. When I meet someone new for the first time, it generally goes something like this. Hi, my name is Melis. It's nice to meet you. What was that? My name is Melis. You can think of it like the month of May with a list on the end. Well, that's very unusual. I've never heard that before. It's Venezuelan. My parents were in the Peace Corps, and they were in a small, remote jungle village for 2 years. My sister and I were both named after children that they worked with. My namesake was Melis, but my mom didn't want everyone calling me Choo Choo, so she dropped the Choo, and I became Melis. Unfortunately for my younger sister, her name was Neji, which rhymes with witchy. Yes. Childhood can be brutal. So growing up, I was inspired by their stories of adventure and their services. But they weren't the only ones in my life who were influencing me. My grandparents owned a newspaper in a small Texas town. They were very progressive for those times. For example, they were championing civil rights and using their platform. That was very controversial then. So much so that their shop was firebombed.
Wow.
After the attack, my grandfather was actually awarded the prestigious Lovejoy Award for courage and heroism. And in 1963, when John F. Kennedy came to Dallas and was shot, my grandfather was deeply moved. Always looking for truth and justice, he began to investigate the murder. And he began using the newspaper to publish his findings, and he wrote several books on the topic. My grandparents actually traveled around the world from that point, and he would lecture on the assassination. So once there was an article that came out that called my grandfather the Big Daddy of the JFK assassination research. So being a little kid, I thought if my grandfather is the Big Daddy, then certainly my grandmother should be Big Mama. So that's what we started calling her. But it was funny because she was 4'11". My grandmother was very dear to me. In fact, I would say that she was old crud tuning us. She was sharp as a tack. At the age of 14, she started college. In support of the investigation, my grandmother would read 7 newspapers every day. She was basically a modern-day Google. And at the age of 70, she was enrolled in jazzercise. Whenever I needed help, my grandmother was there. If I needed to learn something, like learning how to tie my shoe as a kid, or maybe a school project, my parents would drop me off on Friday, and they would pick me up on Sunday. And by the time that they had, I had learned my lessons. Somehow, my grandmother always made learning fun. It seemed like play to me. I remember at a very young age, she gave me a checkbook, and she was teaching me how to balance my one-day checking account. I had all these papers, and she told me that I needed an office. And so she gave me a very special place in the house, on top of the refrigerator. I was sitting on top of the refrigerator when my mom walked in on Sunday, and I could tell that she was shaken. But nonetheless, looking back, my grandmother was always teaching me. She was teaching me to be capable. She was teaching me how to navigate this big world. So my grandmother loved 2 things in this world: Haagen-Dazs ice cream and to travel. So when I was 10, she took me on a trial trip to San Antonio. And my grandmother only had one rule about traveling. She said that we should be kind to each other. She said undoubtedly something is going to happen on our trip that we didn't anticipate. But it's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out. She was right, as always. Our trip was successful. And from there on out, my grandmother took me somewhere every summer for as long as she could travel. oh my goodness, the adventures that we had from New York to London, to Seattle, to Norway, from Vancouver to Rome. My grandmother, she taught me how to be fearless. She nurtured a deep appreciation of different cultures, and she showed me how to connect with strangers. I was very lucky. This woman just poured love into me. I don't know where I would be without her, but I do know that my grandmother would be very proud that I'm enrolled in Toastmasters and that I'm honoring her lessons to always be inquisitive and keep learning.